The fluorescent lights hum overhead like dying insects as Jake Thompson pushes the industrial mop across the marble floor of Sterling Industries' 40th floor. It's past midnight in downtown Seattle. The city sprawls below, through floor-to-ceiling windows, its lights twinkling like fallen stars. His weathered hands grip the mop handle, calloused from years of this work, yet steady as a surgeon's. The phone in his back pocket buzzes. Jake pauses, checking the screen. A photo of 8-year-old Emma appears, gap-toothed smile, braided hair, holding a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures under a rainbow. Below it, a text message that makes his chest tighten. "Daddy, when will I get to meet Mommy?" Jake's breath catches. He types back quickly. "Mommy is watching you from heaven, sweetheart. Go to sleep." What he doesn't know is that 40 floors above, in the executive penthouse, Victoria Sterling sits behind her mahogany desk, watching him through the security feed on her computer. Her manicured fingers tremble slightly as she zooms the camera closer to Jake's face. Tears glisten in her green eyes as she whispers to the empty office. "I'm so sorry." If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed because of your job or social status, this story is for you. Sometimes the most extraordinary heroes hide in the most ordinary places, and sometimes the most powerful people carry the heaviest burdens. Let's discover together how one act of courage can change everything. Jake wipes down the executive conference table, his movements methodical and precise. He's cleaned this same table every night for 3 years. But tonight, something feels different. The silence of the building presses against him like a weight. In his pocket, his old military watch, a Casio he's worn since his army days, ticks steadily against his hip. His reflection stares back from the polished surface. 34 years old, brown hair showing premature gray at the temples, eyes that have seen too much loss. The uniform shirt hangs loose on his lean frame. He's lost weight since taking this job, too tired to eat properly between his day shift at the warehouse and this night cleaning gig. Emma needs surgery within 6 months, the doctors said. Her congenital heart condition is worsening, and without intervention, she might not see her 9th birthday. The insurance covers basic care, but the specialized procedure she needs costs $250,000, more money than Jake has ever seen in one place. He thinks about the medical degree hidden in his apartment drawer, wrapped in plastic like a relic from another life. Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, graduated summa cum laude, accepted into cardiac surgery residency before Sarah got sick, before everything changed. The elevator dings softly. Jake freezes. No one should be here at this hour. Heavy footsteps echo down the hallway, and Jim Martinez, the head of security, rounds the corner. His face is flushed, sweat beading on his forehead despite the building's air conditioning. "Jake," Jim gasps, clutching his chest. "Something's wrong. I can't breathe." His words cut off as his knees buckle. Jake drops his cleaning supplies and rushes forward, his hands finding Jim's wrist with practiced precision. The pulse is rapid and irregular, skin clammy to the touch. "Jim, look at me," Jake says, his voice calm despite the urgency. "When did the chest pain start?" "About 10 minutes ago," Jim wheezes. "Feels like an elephant sitting on my chest." Jake's mind shifts automatically into emergency mode. He checks Jim's pupils, notes the pallor spreading across his face, the way he's favoring his left arm. Classic presentation of myocardial infarction. "We need to get you to a hospital immediately," Jake says, helping Jim to a chair. "This is cardiac." "Can't afford an ambulance," Jim mutters. "My insurance." "Don't worry about that now." Jake pulls out his phone, dialing 911 while maintaining visual contact with Jim's breathing pattern. "Dispatch, I need an ambulance at Sterling Industries, downtown Seattle. Male, 52 years old, presenting with chest pain radiating to left arm, diaphoresis, and irregular pulse. Possible STEMI. The dispatcher's voice crackles through. "Are you medical personnel, sir?" Jake hesitates for exactly 1 second. "I have emergency medical training. Patient needs immediate cardiac intervention." While they wait for the ambulance, Jake loosens Jim's collar and monitors his vitals. He wishes he had access to an EKG or nitroglycerin, but he does what he can with the resources available. Jim's color improves slightly when Jake positions him to optimize blood flow. "You're going to be fine," Jake tells him, and means it. "The paramedics will be here soon." 20 minutes later, EMTs wheel Jim toward the elevator. The lead paramedic stops beside Jake, her expression thoughtful. "Your preliminary assessment was textbook perfect," she says. "You probably added years to his life by recognizing the symptoms so quickly." "Where'd you learn emergency medicine?" "Army," Jake replies, not mentioning the medical degree or the surgical training. 8 years as a combat medic. As the elevator doors close, Jake returns to his cleaning cart. The familiar weight of routine settles back over him like a shroud. He doesn't notice the security camera tracking his every movement, or the woman in the penthouse office who has rewound and replayed the footage of him saving Jim's life 17 times. Victoria Sterling leans back in her leather chair, her heart hammering against her ribs. She's watched Jake work for 3 years, but tonight she's witnessed something that changes everything. The medical terminology he used, the competence that radiated from every gesture, the way he took command of an emergency situation. This man is not just a janitor. She opens Jake's employment file on her computer. The information is deliberately sparse, she realizes now. Jake Thompson, age 34, hired 3 years ago, perfect attendance record. Emergency contact listed as Emma Thompson, daughter. No mention of military service or medical background, but Victoria has resources that go far beyond standard HR records. Her fingers hover over the secure database access. She could uncover Jake's entire history with a few keystrokes. But something stops her. The same guilt that has kept her in this office every night for 3 years, watching the man whose life she destroyed. Victoria closes the file and turns back to the security feed. Jake has resumed mopping, his movements slower now, exhaustion evident in the set of his shoulders. She watches until he disappears into the stairwell, then finally allows herself to leave the prison she's made of her executive suite. The next morning arrives gray and drizzling, typical Seattle weather that matches Jake's mood as he drives Emma to school in his 15-year-old Honda. The radio drones about traffic conditions, while Emma chatters about her upcoming art project. "Mrs. Henderson says we're supposed to draw our families," Emma announces, bouncing slightly in her booster seat. "I'm going to draw you and me and Mommy." Jake's hands tighten on the steering wheel. "That sounds beautiful, sweetheart. Will you tell me about Mommy again?" The question comes every few days, and each time it hits Jake like a physical blow. Mommy loved you more than anything in the world. She was smart and funny and brave, and she made the best pancakes on Sunday mornings. Why did she have to go to heaven? Jake pulls into the school parking lot, buying himself time to formulate an answer that won't give Emma nightmares. Sometimes angels need the best people to help them, so God calls them home early. But Mommy is always watching over us. Emma seems satisfied with this explanation. She kisses Jake goodbye and runs toward the school building, her backpack bouncing behind her. Jake watches until she disappears inside, then checks his phone for the time. 6 hours until his warehouse shift ends, then 4 hours of sleep before returning to Sterling Industries. The warehouse job is mind-numbing labor, loading trucks, moving inventory, following orders from supervisors half his age who treat him like he's invisible. Jake's coworkers are decent enough, but they see him as what he appears to be, a guy who peaked in high school and never figured out how to climb higher. If they knew he once performed emergency surgery in a field hospital outside Kandahar, or that he published 3 papers on cardiac intervention techniques before leaving medical school, they'd think he was lying. Jake has become so good at being invisible that sometimes he forgets who he used to be. By 5:30 p.m., Jake's body aches from 8 hours of manual labor. He drives home to the small apartment he shares with Emma, helps her with homework, makes dinner from whatever's left in the refrigerator, and tries not to think about the medical bills piling up on his kitchen counter. Emma falls asleep on the couch while they're watching a movie. Jake carries her to bed, tucking the blankets around her small form. Her breathing sounds slightly labored tonight, a reminder that time is running out. At 11 p.m., he kisses Emma's forehead and heads to Sterling Industries for his second job of the day. The 40th floor of Sterling Industries feels different tonight. Jake can't pinpoint exactly what has changed, but there's an energy in the air that makes his skin prickle. He begins his routine in the executive wing, working methodically through conference rooms and offices. As he cleans Victoria Sterling's outer office, Jake notices details he's overlooked before: framed photographs of charitable events, awards for medical research funding, a small collection of books about grief counseling. The woman who runs this billion-dollar empire is more complex than the business magazines suggest. Jake moves to the windows. Seattle's skyline spread out below like a circuit board. Somewhere out there, Emma is dreaming, trusting that her father will find a way to save her. The weight of that responsibility sits on Jake's chest like a stone. His phone buzzes with a text from Emma's babysitter. She's fine, sleeping peacefully. Heart rate normal on the monitor. Jake bought the heart rate monitor with his first paycheck from Sterling Industries. It's not medical-grade equipment, but it helps him sleep knowing Emma's condition is being tracked. What he doesn't know is that the readings are automatically uploaded to a secure server, where they're monitored by a team of pediatric cardiologists paid by an anonymous benefactor. At 6 a.m., Jake finishes his cleaning rounds and heads for the parking garage. The morning shift employees are already arriving, well-dressed professionals who look through him as if he doesn't exist. Jake badges out through the service entrance and walks to his Honda. That's when he sees the Mercedes. Victoria Sterling's black sedan is speeding down Pine Street, moving too fast for the wet conditions. Jake watches from the sidewalk as the car approaches the intersection, where Pine meets the steep grade of First Avenue. A delivery truck runs the red light at exactly the wrong moment. Victoria swerves hard to avoid the collision. Her Mercedes skids on the rain-slick asphalt, tires shrieking as she loses control. The car smashes through the concrete barrier at the edge of the hill and tumbles down the steep embankment, metal screaming against rock and pavement. Jake runs toward the crash site without thinking. Other pedestrians are pulling out phones to call for help, but Jake is already scrambling down the rocky slope. The Mercedes has come to rest against a cluster of trees, its front end crumpled, smoke beginning to rise from under the hood. "Victoria," he shouts, though he's never spoken to her directly before. "Can you hear me?" No response. Jake reaches the car and looks through the spider-webbed driver's side window. Victoria is slumped forward against the steering wheel, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. The acrid smell of burning oil fills his nostrils. Jake tries the door handle. Locked. He looks around desperately and finds a piece of concrete rubble. "I'm sorry about this," he mutters, then smashes the passenger window. Glass shower down as Jake clears the opening and crawls inside. His hands find Victoria's neck, checking for a pulse. It's strong but rapid, indicating possible shock. Her breathing is shallow, but steady. "Victoria, can you hear me?" Jake asks, gently lifting her head to assess the injury. "My name is Jake. I'm going to get you out of here." Her eyes flutter open, unfocused and confused. "What happened?" "Car accident," Jake says, running his hands along her arms and torso, checking for obvious fractures. "Do you have pain anywhere specific?" "My head," she whispers, "and my chest hurts." Jake examines the head wound. Superficial, but bleeding freely. The chest pain concerns him more. He checks her ribcage carefully, feeling for signs of internal injury. Her pulse is growing faster, which could indicate internal bleeding. I need to move you, Jake says, but first I have to check your spine. He runs his fingers along Victoria's neck and back, feeling for irregularities or signs of vertebral damage. Years of combat medical training guide his movements. When he's satisfied that moving her won't cause paralysis, Jake carefully works his arms around Victoria's torso. This might hurt, he warns, then lifts her out of the driver's seat and through the passenger window. The smoke is getting thicker, and Jake can hear a faint crackling sound that suggests fire. He carries Victoria up the steep embankment, his legs burning with effort. She's lighter than he expected, and despite her injury, she clings to him with surprising strength. When they reach the street level, Jake gently lowers her to the sidewalk. "Stay with me," he tells Victoria, checking her pulse again. "The paramedics are coming." Victoria looks up at Jake, her green eyes clearer now. "You're the janitor," she says, confusion evident in her voice. "Just focus on staying awake," Jake replies, applying pressure to the cut on her head with his shirt sleeve. "But you know medical terminology," Victoria continues. "How do you know about spinal injuries and shock protocols?" Before Jake can answer, the Mercedes explodes. The sound echoes off the surrounding buildings like thunder, and debris rains down on the street. If Jake hadn't gotten Victoria out when he did, she would have been killed instantly. Sirens wail in the distance, growing louder. Jake maintains pressure on Victoria's wound while monitoring her breathing. Color is returning to her face, which is a good sign. "What's your name?" Victoria asks. "Jake Thompson." Recognition flickers in her eyes. "Thompson, you work the night shift." "That's right. You have a daughter?" Jake freezes. How does she know about Emma? "Yes." "Emma," Victoria says quietly. 8 years old. Congenital heart condition. Jake's blood turns cold. "How do you know that?" Before Victoria can answer, the first ambulance arrives. Paramedics swarm the scene, and Jake steps back to give them room to work. The lead EMT approaches him while her partner stabilizes Victoria. "Are you the one who pulled her out?" she asks. "Yes." "Good work. Another few minutes and that car would have been a crematorium." The paramedic studies Jake's face. "You seem to know what you're doing. Medical background?" "Army medic," Jake says automatically. As Victoria is loaded onto a stretcher, her eyes find Jake's. "Thank you," she mouths silently. Jake nods, but his mind is racing. How does Victoria Sterling know Emma's name and medical condition? The coincidence feels impossible. The CEO of the company where he works, rescued from a burning car, somehow aware of his daughter's private medical information. A police officer approaches with a clipboard. "I need to get your statement, sir." Jake provides the basic facts while watching the ambulance disappear into Seattle traffic. When the officer is finished, Jake walks back to his Honda on unsteady legs. His shirt is torn and bloody. His hands shake with residual adrenaline, but all he can think about is Victoria's expression when she said Emma's name. Jake doesn't go home. Instead, he drives to Seattle Children's Hospital, where Victoria has been taken for treatment. He tells himself he's just being a good Samaritan, checking on someone he helped. But the truth is more complicated. The emergency waiting room smells of antiseptic and anxiety. Jake approaches the reception desk, still wearing his torn shirt. "I'm asking about Victoria Sterling," he says. "I'm the one who pulled her from the car." The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, checks her computer. "She's in stable condition. The doctor will be out shortly to speak with family members." "I'm not family," Jake clarifies. "I just wanted to make sure she was okay." "You saved her life," the receptionist says warmly. "That makes you important to us. Have a seat and I'll let you know when there's an update." Jake settles into an uncomfortable plastic chair. The waiting room television drones quietly, showing morning news. His phone vibrates with a text from Emma's babysitter. "Emma's asking when you're coming home. Should I tell her you're at work?" Jake types back, "Tell her Daddy had to help someone who was hurt. I'll be home soon." 20 minutes later, a doctor in scrubs approaches. "Are you Jake Thompson?" Yes. I'm Dr. Martinez. Ms. Sterling is asking to see you. Jake follows the doctor through a maze of corridors to the intensive care unit. Victoria lies in bed, connected to monitors, a bandage covering the gash on her forehead. She looks smaller somehow, her usual armor of power suits and executive confidence stripped away. "Jake," she says when she sees him, "please, sit down." He takes the chair beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I was hit by a truck," Victoria says with a weak smile. "The doctors say I have a concussion and 3 cracked ribs, but I'll recover fully." "That's good news." Victoria studies his face intently. "You know, when I was trapped in that car, I thought I was going to die. And the strangest thing happened. I wasn't thinking about my company or my achievements or any of the things that usually consume me. I was thinking about a little girl named Emma Thompson and how her father works 2 jobs to pay for her medical care." Jake's heart starts pounding. "Ms. Sterling? I know about Emma's heart condition because I've been paying for her medical monitoring equipment," Victoria continues. "I know about the surgery she needs because I've been consulting with pediatric cardiologists about her case. I know about your financial situation because I've been trying to figure out how to help without revealing myself." Jake stands up abruptly. "I don't understand." "Sit down, Jake, please." He remains standing. "Why would you do any of those things? We're strangers." Victoria's eyes fill with tears. "We're not strangers. 3 years ago, on a rainy night in October, I was driving home from the worst board meeting of my career. I'd been drinking, not enough to be legally impaired, but enough to cloud my judgment. I was tired, angry, and distracted." Jake's legs give out. He sinks back into the chair as Victoria continues. "There was a woman in a sedan at the intersection of Pine and Broadway," Victoria whispers. "She was rushing to the hospital because she wasn't feeling well, and her husband was working. I was looking at my phone instead of the road, and when I looked up, Sarah," Jake breathes. "I killed your wife," Victoria says, tears streaming down her face, "and I've spent every day since then trying to find a way to make amends for the unforgivable." The hospital room spins around Jake. He grips the arms of his chair, feeling like he might vomit. "You're lying." "I wish I were." Jake stares at Victoria Sterling, the powerful CEO he just saved from a burning car, the anonymous benefactor who has been helping his family, the drunk driver who destroyed his world. "You've been watching us." "Yes." "You got me the job at Sterling Industries." "Yes." "The anonymous payments for Emma's medical equipment." "All me." Jake stands again, his hands clenched into fists. 3 years. 3 years I've been working for you, and you never said anything." "What could I say?" Victoria asks desperately. "I'm sorry doesn't bring back the dead. You let me mop your floors while knowing you killed my wife." "I deserve worse than that," Victoria says quietly. "I know I do." Jake begins pacing the small room. "This is insane. You killed Sarah, and then you what? Decided to play God with our lives? Control us from the shadows?" "I was trying to help." "You were trying to ease your guilt," Jake shouts, then immediately lowers his voice, remembering they're in a hospital. "You think money fixes everything? You think paying for Emma's medical bills absolves you of murder?" Victoria flinches at the word. "No, I know it doesn't." "Then why?" Jake demands. "Why reveal yourself now?" "Because watching you save my life made me realize that you deserve to know the truth," Victoria says. "You're not just some janitor who happened to be in the right place at the right time. You're a trained medical professional who gave up everything to take care of his family. You're a good man who deserves better than the lie I've been living." Jake stops pacing. "What do you mean, trained medical professional?" "Johns Hopkins School of Medicine," Victoria says quietly. "Graduated summa cum laude, accepted into cardiac surgery residency at Mass General. You left the program when Sarah was diagnosed with cancer." Jake's face goes white. How do you know all this? Because I've been trying to understand the man whose life I ruined, Victoria replies. And what I found was someone who sacrificed his dreams twice. Once for his wife, now for his daughter. The monitors beep steadily as silence stretches between them. Finally, Jake sinks back into the chair. Emma needs surgery, he says numbly. I know. I've already arranged for the best pediatric cardiac team on the West Coast. With your money? Yes. Jake looks at Victoria's bandaged face. I saved your life today. Yes, you did. If I had known who you were? You still would have saved me, Victoria interrupts. Because that's who you are. It's who you've always been. Jake's phone buzzes. He checks the screen and sees a text from an unknown number. Check your email. There's something else you need to know about the night Sarah died. He looks at Victoria. Did you send this? She nods. The police report was classified, but I had my lawyers obtain a copy. Jake, the accident was more complicated than either of us knew. With shaking hands, Jake opens his email. There's a message from Victoria with an attachment labeled King County Police Investigation. Confidential. As Jake reads, his understanding of that terrible October night shifts once more. According to the report, Sarah's car had a documented brake failure that the manufacturer had been covering up for months. The accident wasn't just about Victoria's distracted driving. Sarah's brakes had failed completely when she tried to stop at the intersection. Both vehicles were victims of circumstances beyond driver control, Jake reads aloud. Manufacturer recall initiated 6 months after incident. No criminal charges recommended. He looks up at Victoria. Your brakes failed too. The entire model line had defective brake systems, Victoria confirms. The manufacturer settled with both our insurance companies and paid additional compensation to keep the details quiet. Jake stares at the report. So the accident was caused by corporate negligence. Not just my poor judgment, Victoria finishes. Although I was still impaired, still distracted, still responsible for my choices that night. Jake's hands shake as he processes this information. Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? Because it felt like making excuses, Victoria says. Sarah died because I was drinking and texting while driving. The brake failure doesn't change that. Jake reads the report again, looking for details he might have missed. The manufacturer paid you $5 million in the settlement. Every penny went to charity, Victoria says firmly. I used my own money for Sarah's funeral expenses and everything else. Jake looks at Victoria lying in the hospital bed, vulnerable and broken. I don't know how to process this. Neither do I, Victoria admits. But Jake, Emma needs surgery soon. And regardless of what happens between us, I want to make sure she gets the best possible care. Before Jake can respond, his phone rings. The caller ID shows Emma's school. Mr. Thompson? The voice is Emma's teacher. I'm sorry to call, but Emma collapsed during recess. The paramedics are taking her to Children's Hospital. Jake's world tilts sideways. I'll be right there. He stands to leave, then turns back to Victoria. The surgery Emma needs. How much does it really cost? $250,000 for the procedure, plus post-operative care and rehabilitation. And you'll pay for all of it? Yes. Jake stares at her for a long moment. Why should I trust you? Because, Victoria says quietly, you're the only person who has ever saved my life, and Emma is the only person who can save my soul. As Jake rushes from the hospital room, Victoria's words echo in his mind, somewhere in the labyrinth of guilt, coincidence, and impossible circumstances. A truth is emerging that neither of them is prepared to face. Jake's Honda tears through Seattle traffic, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every red light feels like an eternity as he races toward Children's Hospital. His phone buzzes repeatedly. Texts from Emma's babysitter, calls from the school, notifications he can't focus on while his daughter's life hangs in the balance. The emergency room at Children's Hospital is chaos. Jake bursts through the automatic doors, his torn shirt from the morning's rescue still stained with Victoria's blood. The receptionist recognizes him immediately. "Emma Thompson," Jake gasps. 8 years old, brought in from Greenwood Elementary. "Room 7, the nurse says gently. Dr. Rodriguez is with her now." Jake runs down the corridor, his heart hammering against his ribs. He finds Emma's room and pushes through the door. His daughter lies on the hospital bed, an oxygen mask covering her small face, monitors beeping steadily around her. "Daddy!" Emma's voice is muffled by the mask, but her eyes light up when she sees him. Dr. Rodriguez looks up from Emma's chart. "Mr. Thompson, we need to talk." Jake moves to Emma's bedside, taking her small hand in his. "How bad is it?" "Her condition has deteriorated significantly," Dr. Rodriguez says quietly. "The episode at school was caused by severe arrhythmia. We can't wait any longer for the surgery." "When?" Jake asks, though he already knows the answer will shatter his world. "Tomorrow morning. I've already contacted the surgical team." Jake's legs nearly give out. "The cost has been taken care of," Dr. Rodriguez interrupts. "An anonymous benefactor has covered all expenses, including the most advanced cardiac intervention available." Emma tugs on Jake's sleeve. "Daddy, the nice lady called me." Jake's blood chills. "What nice lady, sweetheart?" "The one with the pretty voice. She said she knew Mommy, and that she's going to make sure I get better." Before Jake can process this, his phone rings. Victoria's name appears on the screen. "I heard about Emma." Victoria's voice sounds weak, but determined. "Is she stable?" Jake steps into the hallway. "For now. The surgery is tomorrow." "I've arranged for Dr. Patricia Walsh to lead the surgical team," Victoria says. "She's the best pediatric cardiac surgeon in the country." "You called Emma," Jake says, his voice tight with emotion. "I wanted her to know that someone cares about her, someone who cared about her mother, too." Jake leans against the wall, exhaustion weighing on him like gravity. "Victoria, I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Accept help from the person who killed my wife." Silence stretches between them. Finally, Victoria speaks. "Jake, can you come back to my room? There's something else I need to tell you." Victoria's hospital room feels different when Jake returns. The late afternoon sun slants through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Victoria is sitting up now, looking more alert despite her injuries. "How's Emma?" she asks immediately. Scared. Brave. Ready for surgery she doesn't fully understand. Jake settles into the chair beside Victoria's bed. "She said you told her. You knew Sarah." Victoria nods slowly. "I've been carrying a secret for 3 years, Jake. Something that makes everything even more complicated." "I don't think it can get more complicated. I didn't just hit Sarah's car randomly," Victoria continues. "She was on her way to see me." Jake stares at her. "What?" "Sarah had been working as a freelance medical researcher," Victoria explains. "She was investigating the brake failure incidents for a law firm that was building a case against the manufacturer. She had documents, witness statements, engineering reports that proved the company knew about the defect months before anyone died." Jake's world tilts again. Sarah was working from home while taking care of Emma. She was brilliant, Jake. Her research was going to expose a cover-up that had already killed 17 people across 6 states. "But she never told me because she wanted to surprise you," Victoria says, tears sliding down her cheeks. "She was planning to give you the research fee as a gift so you could return to medical school. $25,000 for 3 months of investigation work." Jake feels like he's drowning. "You're saying Sarah died on her way to meet you about brake failures, and then we were both victims of the same brake failure." "She was carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would have saved lives," Victoria whispers. evidence that died with her in the accident. Where's the briefcase now? Victoria reaches for her bedside table, pulling out a manila envelope. The police gave it to me after the investigation was closed. I've kept it all these years, waiting for the right moment to honor Sarah's work. Jake opens the envelope with shaking hands. Inside are dozens of documents, engineering reports, internal company memos, and photographs of brake failure accidents. Sarah's handwriting covers the margins, notes, questions, connections she was making between seemingly isolated incidents. She was going to save people, Jake says quietly. She was going to change everything, Victoria confirms. And Jake, there's more. The night she died, Sarah left you a voice message. It's on her old phone, which was recovered from the accident scene. Victoria hands Jake a phone he recognizes, Sarah's pink iPhone, cracked but intact. The police gave this to me because I was listed as her emergency contact for the research project. I've never had the courage to listen to the message. Jake stares at the phone. Why now? Because Emma deserves to hear her mother's voice before surgery, Victoria says, and because you deserve to know what Sarah wanted to tell you that night. With trembling fingers, Jake accesses Sarah's voicemail. There's one unheard message, time-stamped at 8:43 p.m. on the night she died. Jake, honey, I know you're at work, but I had to call. Sarah's voice fills the hospital room, warm and alive and impossible. I'm on my way to meet Victoria Sterling about the brake failure investigation. Baby, this is it. The evidence we need to expose everything. The money from this job will pay for you to go back to medical school, and we can finally give Emma the life she deserves. Jake's vision blurs with tears as Sarah's voice continues. I love you so much, and I'm so proud of the man you've become. You gave up your dreams to take care of me and Emma, but I'm going to give them back to you. We're going to be okay, Jake. Everything is going to be okay. The message ends. Jake stares at the phone, Sarah's final words echoing in his mind. She loved you so much, Victoria says softly. Jake looks up at Victoria, seeing her clearly for the first time. She was trying to help people, just like you've been trying to help us. I failed her that night, Victoria replies, but I swear to you, I won't fail Emma. Before Jake can respond, Emma's voice comes from the doorway. Daddy, who's the pretty lady? Jake turns to see Emma standing in the hospital corridor, her IV pole beside her. She's wearing the colorful hospital gown that makes her look impossibly small and young. Emma, you should be in bed, Jake says, standing quickly. I heard Mommy's voice, Emma says, her eyes wide. Was that really her? Jake glances at Victoria, who nods encouragingly. Yes, sweetheart. That was Mommy. Emma approaches Victoria's bed slowly. Are you the nice lady who's going to pay for my surgery? Victoria's composure cracks completely. Yes, Emma. I am. Why are you so sad? The question hangs in the air like a prayer. Victoria looks at Jake, silently asking permission. Because, Victoria says carefully, I made a mistake a long time ago that hurt your daddy very much. Emma considers this with the seriousness that only children possess. Did you say sorry? I'm trying to, Victoria whispers. Daddy says sorry is the first step, but you have to mean it, and then do better. Emma reaches out and takes Victoria's hand. Do you mean it? More than anything in the world, Emma smiles. Then you can be my friend. Jake watches this exchange with wonder. His 8-year-old daughter has just accomplished what he's been struggling with for hours. She's forgiven the unforgivable, with the grace that only comes from a heart that hasn't learned to hate. Emma, Jake says gently, we need to get you back to your room. Can Victoria come visit me before surgery? Jake looks at Victoria. If she's feeling well enough. I'll be there, Victoria promises. That night, Jake sits beside Emma's bed as she sleeps. The cardiac monitors beep steadily, and nurses check on her every hour. At midnight, Victoria appears in the doorway, moving carefully with a wheelchair. "I told you I'd be here," she whispers. Jake helps Victoria transfer to the chair beside Emma's bed. Together, they watch his daughter breathe, the rise and fall of her chest marking time until morning. "I've been thinking about Sarah's research," Jake says quietly. "What about it?" "The brake manufacturer was never held accountable. 17 people died, and they covered it up." Victoria nods. The statute of limitations ran out on most criminal charges, but civil liability could still apply. Sarah would have wanted justice. Yes, she would have. Jake looks at Victoria. "After Emma's surgery, I want to finish what Sarah started. I want to expose the cover-up and make sure those 17 families get the compensation they deserve." Victoria's eyes widen. That would mean going up against a billion-dollar corporation with unlimited legal resources. "Not if we do it together," Jake says. "Sterling Industries has the resources to fight them, and I have Sarah's evidence." "Jake, are you sure? This would connect us permanently, working together on something this significant." Jake studies Victoria's face in the dim hospital lighting. "3 days ago, I thought you were just my boss. Yesterday, I thought you were the drunk driver who killed my wife. Today, I find out you're the woman Sarah was trying to help, and you've been trying to save my daughter's life for 3 years. What does that make me now?" Jake considers the question. "I think it makes you family." Victoria's breath catches. "Jake!" "Emma's right," Jake continues. "Sorry is the first step, but the second step is doing better. If we work together to get justice for Sarah and those other families, if we make sure Emma grows up in a world where corporations can't cover up deadly defects, that's doing better." Victoria reaches across the space between their chairs and takes Jake's hand. "Your wife was an extraordinary woman." "Yes, she was. And she raised an extraordinary daughter." They sit in comfortable silence, watching Emma sleep. Outside the hospital windows, Seattle's lights twinkle like stars, and for the first time in 3 years, Jake allows himself to imagine a future beyond mere survival. At 6 a.m., Dr. Walsh arrives with the surgical team. She's a small woman with confident hands and kind eyes, exactly the person Jake would want operating on his daughter. "Emma's going to do beautifully," Dr. Walsh assures them. "The new valve technology we're using has a 98% success rate, and her age works in her favor." Emma wakes up as the team prepares to take her to surgery. She looks at Jake with complete trust. "Will you be here when I wake up?" she asks. "I promise," Jake says, kissing her forehead. "What about Victoria?" Jake looks at Victoria. "If she wants to be." "I'll be right here," Victoria promises. As Emma is wheeled towards surgery, she calls back. "Daddy, I think Mommy would like Victoria. She has the same kind eyes." The surgery takes 4 hours. Jake paces the waiting room, while Victoria makes phone calls from her wheelchair. She's arranging something, but Jake doesn't ask what. He's learned to trust her intentions. Dr. Walsh finally emerges, still in scrubs. The surgery was a complete success. Emma's new valve is functioning perfectly, and her heart rhythm is already improving. Jake sinks into a chair, relief flooding through him like warm water. "When can we see her?" "She's waking up now. Give us about 30 minutes to get her settled in recovery." When they're finally allowed into Emma's room, she's sitting up in bed. Color returned to her cheeks. The difference is remarkable. She looks more alive than Jake has seen her in months. "Daddy," Emma's voice is stronger now. "I can breathe better." Jake hugs her carefully, mindful of the surgical incisions. "How do you feel, sweetheart?" "Like I can run really fast," Emma says, then notices Victoria. "Did you stay the whole time?" "I promised I would." Emma reaches for Victoria's hand. "Thank you for fixing my heart." "You fixed mine too," Victoria whispers. That afternoon, as Emma naps, Jake and Victoria sit in the hospital cafeteria. The conversation turns to practical matters. I want to offer you a job, Victoria says. Director of Medical Affairs for Sterling Industries. Jake nearly chokes on his coffee. Victoria, the salary is $200,000 annually, plus full medical benefits and education funding if you want to complete your surgical residency. I can't accept that. Why not? Because it feels like charity. Victoria leans forward. Jake, you saved my life. You have medical training that could benefit thousands of people. You've shown leadership, compassion, and integrity under impossible circumstances. This isn't charity. It's recognizing your worth. Jake considers this. What about Sarah's investigation? The brake manufacturer? Sterling Industries will fund a full legal team to pursue justice for all 17 families, Victoria says. We'll make it our mission to ensure this never happens again. And us? What are we to each other after all this? Victoria's answer comes without hesitation. Whatever you want us to be. 2 weeks later, Jake stands in Sterling Industries' executive conference room, wearing a suit that actually fits. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seattle spreads out below like a promise. Victoria sits at the head of the table, addressing a room full of lawyers and reporters. Sterling Industries is announcing a $50 million initiative to investigate automotive safety cover-ups, Victoria declares. This fund will provide legal representation for families affected by corporate negligence and lobby for stronger safety regulations. A reporter raises her hand. Ms. Sterling, what prompted this initiative? Victoria looks at Jake. 3 years ago, a brilliant researcher named Sarah Thompson died while investigating brake failures that had already killed 16 other people. Her work was lost in the accident, but her husband has helped us recover the evidence needed to pursue justice. Jake steps forward. My wife believed that corporations have a responsibility to protect consumers, not profits. This initiative honors her memory and ensures her work wasn't in vain. After the press conference, Jake and Victoria walk to the elevator together. The dynamic between them has shifted completely. They're partners now, equals working toward a common goal. The brake manufacturer's stock dropped 12% today, Victoria mentions. Good, Jake says. Sarah would be proud. What about you? Any regrets about leaving the janitorial position? Jake smiles. None. Although I'll miss the peaceful quiet of the 40th floor at midnight. You can visit any time, Victoria says. After all, you know where I keep the key. They ride the elevator down to the parking garage. Jake's Honda has been replaced by a sensible sedan, courtesy of his new position. As they reach their cars, Victoria turns to him. Jake, there's something I need to ask you. What's it? Emma's been asking when you're going to ask me on a proper date. Jake laughs. She said that? Yesterday. She suggested dinner at that Italian place downtown, followed by a movie she's too young to see. Jake considers this. What did you tell her? That her father would have to make that decision. Jake looks at Victoria. Really looks at her. The guilt that shadowed her features for 3 years has been replaced by something lighter, hopeful. Victoria Sterling, would you like to have dinner with me? Somewhere nice, where we can talk about things other than corporate negligence and cardiac surgery? I thought you'd never ask. 6 months later, Jake arrives home from his new office to find Emma and Victoria in the kitchen, both wearing matching aprons and covered in flour. They're attempting to make pancakes, Sarah's recipe, which Emma remembered with startling accuracy. Daddy! Emma runs to hug him, leaving floury handprints on his suit jacket. Victoria's teaching me about chemical reactions in cooking. Is she now? Jake says, kissing the top of Emma's head. Victoria looks up from the stove, her hair escaping from a ponytail, a smudge of flour on her cheek. She looks nothing like the powerful CEO who once intimidated entire boardrooms, and everything like someone who belongs in their kitchen. How was the deposition? Victoria asks. The brake manufacturer agreed to settle, Jake reports. All 17 families will receive full compensation, and the company is implementing new safety protocols. Emma claps her hands. Mommy's work helped people. Yes, it did, sweetheart. They eat dinner together. The pancakes are only slightly burned. And afterward, Emma insists on showing Victoria her latest art project. It's a drawing of 3 stick figures under a rainbow, but this time there are 4 figures. Mommy watching from a cloud above. That's beautiful, Emma, Victoria says softly. The teacher said we could draw our whole family, Emma explains. So I drew Daddy and me and Mommy and you. Jake feels his throat tighten. Emma, Victoria isn't. She takes care of us like family, Emma interrupts. And she loves us like family. And you smile more when she's here. That makes her family. Victoria's eyes fill with tears. Emma, would it be okay if I loved you and your daddy forever? Can I call you Mom Victoria? Victoria looks at Jake, who nods. You can call me whatever feels right to you. Mom Victoria it is, Emma declares, then yawns widely. As Jake tucks Emma into bed, she asks the question that has replaced her nightly inquiry about Sarah. Will Mom Victoria be here when I wake up? She'll be here as long as you want her to be. Good, Emma says sleepily. I dreamed about Mommy last night. She said she's happy we found each other. Jake kisses Emma's forehead and turns off the light. In the living room, Victoria is cleaning up the kitchen, humming quietly to herself. You don't have to do that, Jake says. I want to, Victoria replies. This feels like home. Jake wraps his arms around Victoria from behind. Sarah would have liked you. You think so? I know so. You finished her work, you saved Emma's life, and you gave me back my purpose. Victoria leans back against Jake's chest. You saved my life first, in more ways than one. Outside their window, Seattle's lights twinkle like fallen stars. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of traffic continues its endless urban symphony. But here, in this small apartment that has been transformed into something larger than the sum of its parts, 3 people have found their way to each other through loss, forgiveness, and the kind of love that can bloom in the most impossible circumstances. Jake thinks about the chain of events that brought them together. A tragic accident, a guilty conscience, a daughter's medical emergency, a moment of heroism in a burning car. Any one of these elements removed, and their lives would have remained separate forever. But Sarah's voice echoes in his memory. Everything is going to be okay, Jake. And for the first time since that terrible October night 3 years ago, Jake believes it might be true. Victoria turns in his arms. What are you thinking about? Second chances, Jake says, and how sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best things we never saw coming. Do you really believe that? Jake looks toward Emma's bedroom, where his daughter sleeps peacefully with a strong heart and dreams full of family. He thinks about his new position, where his medical knowledge serves a purpose greater than himself. He considers the woman in his arms, who has transformed from destroyer to creator, from stranger to soulmate. Yeah, Jake says finally. I really do. Victoria smiles. Sarah was right, you know. About what? Everything is going to be okay. And in the soft glow of their living room, with Emma's artwork covering the refrigerator and the promise of tomorrow stretching out before them like an unwritten story, Jake Thompson, former Army medic, former janitor, current director of medical affairs, and future husband and father, finally allows himself to believe in happy endings. The last thing he sees before turning off the lights is Emma's drawing, where 4 stick figures stand together under a rainbow, and one figure with angel wings watches over them all from a cloud that looks suspiciously like a heart. 1 year later, Jake stands at the podium of the Seattle Convention Center, looking out at an audience of 500 automotive safety advocates, engineers, and family members affected by corporate negligence. The annual Sarah Thompson Memorial Conference for Automotive Safety has become the premier event for consumer protection activism. My wife believed that truth has power, Jake says, his voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. She died pursuing evidence that would save lives. And today, because of the work we've continued in her name, manufacturers can no longer hide deadly defects behind legal walls. In the front row, Victoria holds Emma's hand as his daughter beams with pride. Emma is now 9, her color vibrant and healthy, her energy boundless since the successful surgery. She wears a small pin on her dress, a photo of Sarah surrounded by the words, "Truth has power." The audience applauds as Jake introduces the keynote speaker, Margaret Chen, whose husband died in a brake failure accident in Portland 2 years ago. She's become a fierce advocate since Sterling Industries provided legal representation for her case. Because of the Thompson Initiative, Margaret says, her voice strong despite her tears. 17 families have received justice, and new federal regulations require manufacturers to report safety defects within 72 hours of discovery. No more cover-ups, no more preventable deaths. After the conference, Jake and Victoria walk through Pike Place Market with Emma, who insists on buying flowers for Sarah's grave. It's become their monthly tradition, visiting the cemetery together as a family. At the gravesite, Emma arranges the flowers carefully, while Jake and Victoria stand quietly behind her. The headstone reads, Sarah Thompson, beloved wife, mother, and truth seeker. Her work lives on. Mommy, I got an A+ on my science project about heart surgery, Emma announces to the gravestone. And Daddy and Mom Victoria are getting married next month. You're invited, obviously. Jake exchanges a smile with Victoria. Emma has been planning their wedding with the enthusiasm of a professional coordinator, insisting on specific flowers because Mommy would have wanted daisies, not roses. Are you nervous about the wedding? Victoria asks as they walk back to the car. About marrying you? Never, Jake replies. About Emma's speech at the reception? Terrified. Emma skips ahead of them, her energy infectious. I'm going to tell everyone how you saved each other. That should be interesting, Victoria murmurs. That evening, after Emma is asleep, Jake and Victoria sit on their apartment balcony, overlooking the city lights. They've moved to a larger place in Queen Anne, with Emma's own room and space for Victoria's home office. The apartment feels like the future Sarah wanted for them. Comfortable, secure, filled with love. I got a call from the Department of Transportation today, Victoria says, curling up beside Jake on the outdoor couch. They want Sterling Industries to lead a national task force on automotive safety standards. That's incredible, Jake says. Sarah's investigation is becoming federal policy. It feels surreal sometimes, Victoria admits. 3 years ago, I was a guilt-ridden CEO hiding in my office. Now I'm testifying before Congress about corporate accountability. Jake takes her hand. 3 years ago, I was mopping floors and losing hope. Now I'm directing medical policy for a Fortune 500 company and marrying the woman I love. Emma would say it's because we listen to our hearts. Emma would be right. Victoria's phone buzzes with a text. She checks it and smiles. It's from Jim Martinez. His grandson just graduated from medical school, inspired by your story. Jake remembers the security guard whose heart attack led to that first glimpse of his hidden medical knowledge. Jim recovered fully and now works part-time, spending more time with his family. Ripple effects, Jake says quietly. What do you mean? Sarah's research saved 17 families we know about, but the new regulations will save thousands more. Jim's grandson will save patients we'll never meet. Emma will grow up in a safer world because her mother refused to let corporate negligence go unpunished. Victoria rests her head on Jake's shoulder. Do you think Sarah knew that her work would become something this big? Jake considers the question, remembering Sarah's voice message. "We're going to be okay, Jake. Everything is going to be okay." "I think she knew we'd find a way to honor her work," he says finally. "I don't think she could have imagined how it would all connect. You and me, Emma's surgery, the investigation becoming federal policy. Maybe that's what love does," Victoria suggests. "It creates connections we can't see, possibilities we can't imagine." Inside the apartment, Emma calls out from her bedroom, "Daddy! Mom, Victoria! I can't sleep!" They find her sitting up in bed, holding the photo of Sarah that lives on her nightstand. "I was thinking about the wedding. What if Mommy can't see me from heaven?" Jake sits on the edge of Emma's bed. "What do you mean, sweetheart? What if there are too many clouds or something?" Victoria joins them, sitting on Emma's other side. "You know what I think? I think your mommy sees everything. Every A+ on your report card, every time you help someone who's hurt, every moment you make your daddy smile." "How do you know?" "Because love doesn't end when someone goes to heaven," Victoria explains. "It just changes form. Your mommy's love became the work that saved other families, the surgery that fixed your heart, and the way your daddy learned to love again." Emma considers this seriously. "So, Mommy's love is why you found each other?" Jake and Victoria exchange a look. It's impossible to explain the complex chain of events that brought them together, but Emma's simple interpretation captures something profound. "Yes," Jake says simply. "Mommy's love brought us together." Emma smiles and settles back into her pillows. "Then she'll definitely be able to see the wedding." As they tuck Emma in again, Jake realizes that his daughter has articulated something he's been feeling but couldn't express. Sarah's love didn't end with her death. It transformed, becoming the force that guided them through tragedy toward redemption. Back on the balcony, Victoria curls up against Jake again. 3 weeks until the wedding. "Nervous?" "Excited," Victoria corrects. "For the first time in my adult life, I'm not afraid of the future." Jake pulls her closer. "What changed?" "I learned that redemption isn't about erasing the past," Victoria says thoughtfully. "It's about transforming pain into purpose, guilt into grace, loss into love." Below them, Seattle's lights twinkle like earthbound stars. Somewhere in the city, families sleep safely because of stronger automotive regulations. Medical professionals save lives with equipment funded by Sterling Industries initiatives. And Emma Thompson dreams peacefully with a strong heart and the certainty that she is loved beyond measure. "Sarah was right," Jake says quietly. "About what?" "Everything really is going to be okay." Victoria kisses his cheek. "Better than okay. Everything is going to be beautiful." And as they sit together under the vast Seattle sky, Jake Thompson allows himself to believe in more than happy endings. He believes in new beginnings, second chances, and the kind of love that can transform tragedy into triumph, strangers into family, and broken hearts into something stronger than they ever were before.